The skull is complicated if you don't approach it one thing at a time. So let's just start with the big, flat bones of the skull. These are all named for the parts of the brain they overlie. So tap your forehead. This is the frontal bone. All right, that one's easy. The parietal bones cover the top of the brain. You can only see the right parietal bone in this view, but there is a left and a right, and they're sutured together on the midline. At the posterior of the skull is the occipital bone. It is not only at the back, but it's also underneath the skull too. In fact, your spine connects with your brain through a hole in the occipital bone called the spine hole. I'm kidding, it's not called the spine hole. The temporal bone will be very important to us. It just has a lot of features on it that we will identify, like the ear hole here. Again, kidding. It's not the ear hole. The last bone, it's not really a flat bone, but I want to point it out. This bone extends from side to side through the middle of the skull and is called the sphenoid bone. We will identify many features on this bone when we open up the skull and take a look. These big flat bones, these are the bones of the skull that you can easily see from a superficial view. The zygomatic bone, it's your cheekbone. We saw this before because a few of the other bones we discussed that they articulate with the zygomatic bone. To get a feel where this bone really is, you have to look at the picture with it highlighted in green. We're concerned with a structure on the zygomatic bone that's called the temporal process. And it's on the zygomatic bone and it juts out to the posterior. This is a feature it's hard to relate to in person, and it's even more difficult to recognize and explain in a virtual lab like this. I've provided a picture of the skull from an inferior angle. So this is the bottom of the skull, and you can see the hole through which the spine fits. Let's orient ourselves on this picture for a moment with two bones that we know. The occipital bone is in brown here. The temporal bones are in orange. And the new bone that we now know, the zygomatic, is in blue. Let's see how we could just see the temporal process on the zygomatic bone jutting out to the back of the skull. We can also see the zygomatic process, which is on the temporal bone and juts forward. These processes are not named for the bone that they are on. They're named for the bone that they articulate with. The temporal process is on the zygomatic bone, and it fits with the temporal bone. Zygomatic process, temporal process.